Clean water depends on facilities most people never see, or want to. Story 1. The generator hummed like a dying breath, its vibrations seeping into the concrete walls of the old treatment plant. I wasn't supposed to be here, but with the main control grid down and the city's water reserves teetering, my shift as a junior operator had been bumped to emergency duty, alone. The plant was a labyrinth of pipes, rust-bitten walkways, and the acrid tang of chlorine. My flashlight carved a weak circle through the dark as I checked the pressure gauges. Everything looked fine. Or it would have, if not for the sound. It started as a drip, plastic against metal, sharp and deliberate. Then another drip, and another. Not from the pipes, from somewhere below. I followed the noise, boots echoing in the cavernous space, until I reached the clarification tank. A rusted ladder led down into its maw. The tank was supposed to hold sediment, not this. My light flickered, and the dripping stopped. For a moment, I thought I'd gone mad. Then it began again, accompanied by a wet, dragging thud. I pried open my radio. Static. Of course. Swearing, I descended the ladder, each rung groaning under my weight. The tank's interior was a tangle of pipes and sludge, but halfway down, my beam caught something impossible. A set of footprints in the dry concrete, leading to a hatch I'd never seen before. The hatch was ajar. A cold slither of air curled up from beneath it, reeking of something spoiled. I fished out my multi-tool and pried it wide. The stench hit me first. Rot, chemicals, and blood. My stomach lurched as I shone the light into the void. A spiral staircase, descending into blackness. And at the bottom, movement. A faint buzz, like a swarm of wasps, rose from below. My flashlight trembled in my grip. The plant's original builder had dug this here, the logs said. A bioremediation well, to handle toxic waste. But the blueprints didn't show a staircase. Or the thing at the bottom. It was the size of a bear, maybe more, its outline blob-like and pulsing. A colony. Millions of larvae, glistening with chlorinated sludge, writhing as one. They'd burrowed up before. Small cracks, maintenance tunnels. The logbook entries I'd skimmed earlier now screamed in my mind. Unsanitary conditions, missing equipment, unidentified noises. The larvae surged toward the hatch, their buzz crescendoing. I scrambled up the ladder, slamming it closed. The tank shuddered, and the dripping started anew, now joined by a chorus of clicks and scrapes. I didn't wait to see what they'd do next. I ran, the plant's shadows pressing close, until I reached the break room. There, I found it. The real logbook. Yellowed pages, handwritten warnings from operators who'd vanished. They're in the walls. They're in the pipes. They've been feeding for 30 years. The radio still wouldn't work. The security cameras? Blanked out. Someone had sealed this place's truth long before me. Now, as I sit in the control room, monitoring the pressure gauges, I hear the larvae above the hum of generators. They're getting closer. The plant's a stomach, and I'm the last drop of water trying to escape. I wonder if the next operator will find these notes, or just another tank of sludge. Story 2. The fluorescent lights in the control room hummed like a stuck record. I'd been on the midnight shift at the Mill Creek Water Reclamation Plant for 3 weeks, but this was my first solo rotation. Supervisor Harris had called it a test of discipline. I called it a 12-hour sentence in a concrete cathedral of pipes and pumps. At 2:17 a.m., the gurgling began. It started deep in the aeration tanks, a low, wet groan, like water burbling over rocks. I checked the monitoring panels. All readings were normal. Maybe the biological filters were cycling. Or maybe, I thought, glancing at the ancient schematics on the wall, it was just the building settling. Then came the whisper. I froze. It was faint, threaded through the machinery's growl. Not a whisper, a breathless voice, right behind me. I spun. Nothing. Just the chain-link fence rattling in the wind beyond the glass doors. My coffee slopped over the mug's rim, hot brown droplets staining the desk. I told myself to focus. The plant's digital timer pinged, signaling a pressure check in Tank 7, one of the clarifiers. I grabbed my flashlight and radio, stepping into the greasy chill of the industrial floor. The corridors smelled of chlorine and iron, the air thick enough to taste. My boots echoed on the grating as I passed rows of sedimentation tanks, their surfaces rippling like black mirrors. Tank 7 was at the far end, a sealed cylinder with a maintenance hatch. The gurgling was louder here, now joined by a metallic click-click-click, like someone tapping a wrench against steel. My flashlight beam swept the walls. A rat? No. The sound was too rhythmic, deliberate. The hatch was ajar. Ice crawled up my spine. I didn't remember locking it. My radio crackled, static, then a distorted garble, like someone speaking through water. I leaned closer. The whisper returned, clearer this time. "Get out!" The voice was mine. I yanked the hatch open. The interior ladder descended into pitch, the stink of hydrogen sulfide thickening. My phone's flashlight app revealed concrete steps coated in slime. At the third landing, I found it. A yellowed logbook wedged between pipes. Pages rustled, covered in handwritten entries from 1998. Unstable substrate. Worker missing. This facility is compromised. The ink bled through layers of corrosion, as if someone had tried to bury the book. A sudden clang from above. I dropped the book. The ladder shook. Turning to climb, I glimpsed a movement in the dark. A shadow, humanoid and hunched, inching down the pipes. My breath fogged the light. I scrambled upward, wrenching the hatch open. Back in the control room, I called Harris. "There's something down there," I gasped. He chuckled. "Son, Tank 7's been offline since '98. That hatch was welded shut during the substrate collapse. You sure you're not mixing up your shifts?" I stared at the logbook's final entry. "They're still filtering. They never stopped." The whisper returned, not from the tank, but from the radio. This time, it was Harris's voice, flat and distant. "We'll handle it." At dawn, they sent a crew. I watched from the parking lot as they sealed Tank 7 with fresh chains. No one mentioned the book. No one believed the hatch had ever opened. But when I passed the clarifiers that afternoon, the gurgling was louder, and the concrete around Tank 7 was damp, steam rising from cracks in the ground like something beneath was breathing. Story 3. They called it the drip, a minor annoyance in the hum of machinery that filled the night shift at the Mill Creek water treatment plant. I'd ignored it for weeks, my first assignment solo at the facility's Old West Reservoir. The sound was supposed to stop at midnight when the pressure valves cycled. It didn't. I sat in the control room, chewing tobacco, staring at the monitors. The reservoir was a skeleton of steel and concrete, its 100-foot-deep clarifiers lit by flickering fluorescence. My radio crackled with the Jiban Yuan's voice from the main plant. "You good out there, Harris? Everything quiet?" "Yeah," I lied. The drip had accelerated, a staccato tap-tap-tap echoing from the catwalk above. I told myself it was a stuck pipe, but the rhythm felt deliberate, like someone tapping a code. I grabbed a flashlight and climbed the spiral staircase. The air grew colder, metallic. At the top platform, the drip originated from a rusted valve near the clarifier's edge. I pried it open with a wrench. Nothing. Just a dry pipe. Then I heard it again. But below me, the clarifier's access hatch was a foot-wide circle, sealed with a rusted bolt I'd never seen tightened. My flashlight revealed a set of tiny scratches around the lock, like fingernails dragging. The hatch was closed, but something moved inside. A scuff, then a wet slithering sound. I radioed the main plant. No response. Static. Checking my phone. No signal. The hatch's lock snapped open as if rust had evaporated. Inside, the shaft smelled like wet earth. My beam caught a spiral of old rope ladder, descending into blackness. I didn't think. I climbed. The ladder groaned, the walls closing in. After 20 feet, my light hit something. A collapsed section of pipe, twisted and bloated with algae. Beyond it, the tunnel continued, dry. I squeezed through. Then I saw them. Symbols etched into the concrete. Crude circles with radiating lines, like suns or bombs. Someone had spray-painted, "Stop here," in red. My flashlight trembled in my hand as I pressed on. The tunnel opened into a cavernous chamber, an abandoned part of the reservoir, judging by the old blueprints on the wall. The plans showed this area as a biological filter, but the reality was worse. A series of tanks, sealed with corroded lids, lined the room. One was cracked open, revealing a mound of bones. Not animal. Too small. Too delicate. Humanoid. My breath fogged the air. A ledger sat on a rusted workbench, its pages filled with 1970s-era handwriting. Phase 2 trials. Subjects show reactivity to chlorine levels. Containment breaches. 3. Casualties. 7. The radio in my pocket suddenly hissed. "Harris, why's the emergency drain valve open? You causing a leak?" I looked down. My boots sat in a pool of black water, rising fast. The tanks were leaking. The symbols glowed faintly. Somewhere, a valve screamed open. I ran. The tunnel collapsed behind me, sealing the horror. The next morning, I told my supervisor I wanted another posting. He didn't ask questions. The West Reservoir was decommissioned weeks later. They found no leaks, no bones, no ledger. But sometimes, when I close my eyes, I still hear the drip. And it's not in my head.